Yo, guys, what's going on? Coach Jamie here, and I am so excited to have you here listening to my podcast, Make Time for Your Mind with Coach Jamie, where we will be talking about all things mindset, vulnerability, personal development, ways we can become better individuals. And sometimes in that process, we'll get heavy, sometimes we'll have fun, and sometimes I will be challenging your perspective. The goal, no matter what, though, is to leave you better than you were before you tuned in. So, with that being said, let's dive in. Well, hello, guys. It's been interesting for this season so far of me just kind of going a little bit more vulnerable and just kind of talking through things and not having a game plan. It's been very eye-opening for me and just things with my growth, but also very cool the type of feedback that people have given regarding that. So thank you guys for tuning in. If you're new around here, Coach Jamie, and I'm glad you're here. I just am here to help you make time to just sit and think in a world that makes us feel like we have to be busy all the time. So I'm glad you're here. Feel free to share with whoever else you think would benefit from this. And all this crazy high energy that happens over here. I like to just touch on a little bit of every topic. So, that being said, um, for those of you that do know my story, or even those that do not, we all experience adversity. Let's just start with that, right? Like all of us have had to grow through some really uncomfortable things, and I feel like I have a pretty diverse form of adversity that I've experienced in my life, much of which led to a lot of anger and bitterness and pride and negativity. Depression, especially, was something that like I felt a lot of. Um, and a thing that I maybe also was never really good at was forgiving. Especially in a world now that is like so big on like speaking my truth and knowing my limits and my boundaries and knowing what's best for me, like that's kind of loaded in pride. And it's hard to forgive. Um, yeah. And so that's kind of what I want to talk about today, is forgiveness. It's hard. And one thing in my own journey that I've learned and I've grown through is that I think forgiveness is a choice. It's something that you do every day. The big words about that, like, I'll forgive, but I won't forget. But then are you really forgiving if you're not truly like letting it go for what it was? And there was a quote that I had always heard that said, to forgive is to set a prisoner free and recognize that the prisoner was me. So in that, it's essentially that forgiveness isn't for the other person, it's for actually like yourself. But I would dare to say that it is for both. There's so much healing and just so much freedom that does come in forgiving. Now, obviously, depending what the situation is, it's going to be super hard to forgive. A really, really cool thing happened. I went home. I surprised my family. I haven't been home for a holiday in 5 years with my family. And I was super excited, but I was super, super nervous because it's a lot of time. It's a lot of people, a lot of personalities, a lot of memories, good and bad, that can lead to fights or bitterness, or people who are already walking in like dreading being there because of maybe a situation that was never communicated between one another. And so it was interesting just because the growth of myself and like choosing to actually like let things go and to forgive. I'm very strong in my faith. And even just like with what Jesus did on the cross, the last thing that he said is people were spitting on him and treating him horrendously. It was, forgive them, for they know not what they're doing. And although like you can't let that always be necessary an excuse that like, well, I'm going to pretend like it's okay because they don't know that they're doing it. I think it's a deeper sense of wisdom than that, of like, I don't think they fully really understand the extent of what that action had done. And so one thing that even throughout like the holidays, but prior to this, the healing that I've been doing, the choosing of forgiveness day after day, whether it be for family members, whether it be for myself, whether it be for whoever, is that like we are all experiencing life. We're all going through it. And there is good and bad happening all the time. We are imperfect people, so we're gonna mess up. And we're probably going to unintentionally hurt people along the way, especially if you're in a high stress situation, if you're feeling very vulnerable and already fatigued or full of fear, or anger, that like the way we react to things probably isn't going to be appropriate all the time. And so I think when that grace kicks in of truly like choosing to let it go, like I'm not going to let this one thing jeopardize my relationship with them, genuinely the good qualities that they carry, because everybody, I don't even care how awful of people there are out there, like there's still something good in that person. Even if they're not your people. And so I think it's that we always have the choice to view how we see people, but we always have a choice to forgive as well. And so what I think is interesting is another layer to forgiveness that seems to happen is we're waiting for somebody else to apologize first. We let pride kick in and we're like, yeah, I'll be able to let this go and I can forgive once they acknowledge to me what they did. When they show remorse and they show to me how bad they hurt me, if they acknowledge that, then I can forgive them. And there's this phrase, and apparently I've talked to a couple other people, and not that I would ever think that I would be the inventor of this phrase, but it was something that I started to notice in my own life, is that the first one to forgive is actually the one that wins, because we're sitting back at a stalemate of like being super guarded. I won't move until you move. Like you're giving somebody else that power to make the first move, again, because of pride. But I think it's so powerful if you're like, you know what? No, I'm going to present this first. I'm not going to wait on them. I'm going to choose to forgive and I'm going to choose to love them first. You walk away winning in that situation, even if it doesn't necessarily work out as what you thought. Like you're not sitting here waiting as like, what if? You're not carrying this emotion for them to move, for you to say what you want to say, or like to just truly let something go. And so I think that there's so much power in forgiving first. All of that to say, and again, thank you guys for working through this with me in this fourth season, because I feel like in the others, I always very much have a lot more of a game plan. But this go around, I'm deciding just to like fully share my heart and my own experiences, even as I'm currently like navigating them. So thank you for kind of picking up what I'm putting down along the way in that. But all of this to say is I want to make this about you now. I want you to think through some of the hurt that you're feeling, maybe some of the bitterness that you're carrying, whether it's to previous relationships, maybe it's towards current relationships with loved ones, your spouse, your kids, your family members, coworkers, bosses, whatever. And I want you to sit with that. And then I want you to choose or think about what it would look like to choose forgiveness. Like what do you think could happen if you chose to let it go? Now, I feel like the obvious way first to start with would be like, if I do this, they're going to think that they can walk all over me and that they can keep doing those type of things, or that I am now looking weak, right? Like that's almost the first initial reaction that we would have. But it's like, what if you choosing to forgive, and maybe sometimes that would require actually communicating that forgiveness to the other person. What if that opens up a new line of communication that can actually bring healing to a relationship? Gonna get vulnerable. So even within my family, right? Again, we all love our family. We all have our disconnects and our troubles within our family. You're lying to me if you tell me that's not the case. And so within mine and that dynamic, there I'm one of the only ones who have actually left. Like my whole family's back in Ohio and I'm the only one that got away. And so, there's even the phrase that time heals all wounds. So I have had the benefit to remove myself. Now I've been home multiple times since moving away 5 years ago. But on a day-to-day basis, I am not surrounded and I'm not having any wounds that are being picked at because I did remove myself from the situation. And I think removing myself from that environment allowed me a lot more space to heal. It gave me more opportunity to air it out. So I know that, for what it's worth, I'm speaking from this perspective of it. But again, I've still pulled myself back into that environment a few different times and I walked away feeling more wounded some of those times than not, where I even questioned, why do I keep coming home? And even full transparency, there was a moment that I even said, like, I'm grieving an entire funeral of people who are living that I called my family because I feel like they're not my family anymore because of just how disconnected I felt from them by moving away and every time just getting back exposed to that environment. So this has been a very long journey. Okay. This isn't just this immediate, I chose to forgive. Again, forgiveness is a daily choice. This was me allowing myself to pull away from it and seek the situation differently. And so I surprised my family. So only my mom had known that I was coming home, but I was so excited to go because I had grown so much. I had changed so much. And then rather than choosing to believe that they were still stuck living and being and thinking the same way they did from the last time I saw them, I gave it an opportunity to assume that they've learned some things along the way too. And so when I went home, I already went into it from a position of like, what happened in the past is in the past. Like, still at the end of the day, like, these are my people. Do I like them all the time? No. Do I agree with them all the time? No. But they are truly the people who shaped me, the good, bad, and in between. And guys, this was probably the most healing experience that I've ever had in my life, specifically with my family, where like I was there for almost 2 weeks, longest I had ever been home. And I had prior to that, had it mapped out that after 3 days, that was my sign to go. I loved them before I had a chance to get irritated with them. And I was there for almost 2 weeks and it was even hard to go, but it was because I chose to show up differently. I can't speak on their experiences. I've talked with many of my family members since then because it was a very great Christmas where all of us agreed it was very healing and it was one of the best Christmases that we had. But I can't speak for what that experience truly was for them. But I can tell you how freeing it was for me to be there, not judging, not waiting for someone to do the wrong thing or to prove to me why I don't get along with them. Anything. It was literally, I got to show up in utter forgiveness and healing that like, this is who they are now here today. This is the time that I get with them today, that even if I don't agree with them, I'm grateful for this opportunity. That was a choice. Forgiving, that was a choice. Were there potentially moments where I'm like, of course, but I didn't stay there long because I had practiced and I had chosen forgiveness so much. So again, back to you. Think of people and situations in your life that you are harping onto so much, that is keeping you imprisoned, full of bitterness, comparison, frustration, just ugliness in your heart about this other person, and so fixated on all of the things that have done wrong. And I want to challenge you to consider what it would look like to truly choose forgiveness, to truly choose to let it go. That doesn't mean when you let it go that you throw all brain cells out the window, but that also doesn't mean that that gives you the opportunity to still hold on to that grudge as not forgetting so they won't do it again. I truly want you to try to seek within your heart to let it go and to choose forgiveness. It's a very hard muscle to practice, right? That's like somebody who wants to be able to pull 500 pounds off the ground deadlifting it, or running a marathon, but you don't even walk a mile. You got to practice. You got to strengthen the muscle to it. And that is a muscle that I think is very worth training. So I want to challenge you to choose forgiveness, because the person who chooses forgiveness first, I can promise you will walk away winning. So if pride is also getting in your way, that you are waiting on somebody to come and forgive you first, I want to encourage you to try to reach out and do the opposite and see how it goes. The first to forgive wins. Please send me a message. Give me your feedback. Let me know how this goes if and when you try it, or share your perspective. If you completely disagree, I would love to know that too. If there's somebody that is on your heart to send this to, I would love if you would send that to them as well. So thank you guys for being here, and I'll see you next time.